Recording?
We are now.
Hey, welcome to part 2 of Margaritas and Reflections.
And we are still sober, don't worry.
Yes, we're going through some of the highlights of our year on the Brown Park podcast, and it's actually a good chance that if you're new to the show, you'll hear grabs of people that we've played throughout the year and some of their stories, but also then to go back and have a listen to the full chats to the people that we've had on the show.
Because some of them are pretty amazing and strong people.
So that's what we're doing today on the Brown Park podcast.
The Brown Park podcast.
Hold on.
I can't, I'm out.
You're already out. How has that happened?
Well, I think we've established on this show that I drink a little bit more and a little bit quicker than you, so you know what?
No, you're more of a seasoned professional. Oh, Jesus. Okay, and that's Kevin the Cock. If you don't know who Kevin the Cock is, he is featured on the show since Vegas.
Since Vegas, yes. So go back to the episode. We speak about Kevin and where he came from.
Yep, there is an episode dedicated to our trip to Las Vegas where we went to see U2 at the Sphere and went out to Area 51 and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Kevin was bought in Vegas.
Yes, he was. He was adopted in Vegas.
And has now become part of our life. Kevin the Cock. Yep. All right, put him down.
I can't promise you. Okay. Down, Kevin.
Who do you want to talk about first?
Look, I think I want to go to Jason Field because he was a surprise package for me.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with his story, this is it.
I worked in banking. I just tried to follow the path of middle-class, suburban, white picket fence, two-story house, pool kind of existence in Sydney. My grandfather was a butcher on one side and a builder on the other side. We didn't come from means or anything like that, but sort of rode the trail as everyone did to, my dad worked hard to get into sort of middle management and all that kind of thing. And I just sort of follow that path, and especially from a situation in which there were moments of scarcity and all those kind of things. And I can reflect upon that and my mum's sort of direction of saving money and making our clothes and that kind of thing. I felt like I had to follow a particular path. Yeah. And that was just working really hard, studying and all that kind of thing. And I think the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of people in Australia, at least, is law or banking or real estate. A lot of the boys in real estate as well, and girls naturally too. But I went the banking path, and I spent about maybe 5-6 years in finance. I finished up in private banking, and I burnt I don't know where we're allowed to swear on.
You can swear away, man.
I burnt the fuck out.
Okay, so tell us, what was the moment that you pulled the eject cord?
I didn't make the decision, as some of the mentors that I've been delving into, especially the last sort of 2.5 years, have used. So I'll steal their words. My body said no. I literally woke up one morning and I could not drag my bones out of bed. I was physically shaking. The idea of opening my front door just scared the bejesus out of me. And at that time, it's just confusion as well as fear, right? Like you're saying to yourself, come on, like be a man, like put a suit on and go to work. You got to pay the bills, you know? But I understand now, and looking back and having a whole lot more different perspective on things, I'd worked myself into a state of hypervigilance and overwork and people pleasing and all this type of thing, that because I couldn't present boundaries, my body literally said to myself, if you're not going to go out into the world and set a little moat for yourself and work out the stadium that you're going to play in, well, I'm going to hold you in your house until you do.
It's funny because sorry, Dion.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go straight to you there, Christo, because this is similar to your story there for a bit.
Oh my God. It's okay. So I too worked in banking, and I too hated my fucking life. And I started out on the front counter, you know, counting money, being a cashier, all that kind of stuff. And I loved that, customer facing, chatting to people. Nice. I got moved into the home finance where I was having to look after home loans and shit like that. I was out of my depth, didn't know what I was doing. And same thing. I just wasn't mentally cut out for the pressure at the time of what they put on us was just phenomenal. And this is going back quite a while, but the pressure that we felt then was sell everything at any cost. They didn't care.
Yeah. No, it hasn't changed. Like, I mean, there's different things that make it satisfy the regulations and whatnot, but there were things that happened that don't align with my authentic self. Let's put it that way. And so you carry that burden with you, and you think, holy moly, like, yeah, I get a paycheck, but how much are you willing to take? And again, putting some therapy words on top of that, that's baggage we pick up.
How did you then get into modeling and then we'll go on to where you're at now?
Well, he's a rooster.
Yeah, sure.
Look at him, would you? Like, it's pretty clear.
But the other thing that a lot of people have mentioned to us from the Jason Field chat was the ayahuasca.
Oh my God. And to tell you what, have I gone down that rabbit hole since this episode?
Really?
I really want to give it a crack at some point. Because I mean, if you go down the ayahuasca rabbit hole, and I suggest anyone listening, jump on YouTube, just start Googling ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And it's going to blow your mind, because a lot of people come out of their, I guess, what you'd call session of using it.
Yeah.
And have completely changed their lives. It's like they find the meaning of their own life through that drug.
How bizarre.
But we've got a guest coming up, I think, this season that went to Peru, used ayahuasca, and then came back, quit his job, and started a motorcycle shop.
So Jason brought to the table ayahuasca and enlightened us all as to what it was.
I've always considered myself a bit of an outside the box in terms of feelings of life, or I take a Panadine Forte. I mean, you guys know what Panadine Forte is. I say that in Germany, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?"
What's that?
Like, I took that just from getting my wisdom teeth out, and I go on a high. Like, I'm absolutely plastic. And I tried magic mushrooms that had the craziest trip out of anyone, and all these kind of things. So I'm quite sensitive. Yeah, not in a good way. Not in a good way. I was not willing to be in this world anymore. So I'm trying to get myself in a place where I can try ayahuasca, but I'm not ready yet.
What's that? What is it?
You don't know what ayahuasca is?
No. What is it?
Oh, go down the YouTube rabbit hole. Apparently the meaning of life is revealed to you, but you've got to have a shaman. A lot of people go to Peru for it.
Does 7-Eleven sell it?
No. This is some pretty sketchy stuff.
You know who I want to talk about next?
Who?
I just want to bring him up. Was Brendan Hall, the Paralympian.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not familiar with his story, he lost one of his legs when he was 5 from chickenpox.
Which I didn't even think was a thing.
Wouldn't have had a clue that was like a possibility from chickenpox.
Yeah, but he's gone on to become a Paralympian.
Yep, and this is his story.
So obviously at the age of 6, I was unfortunate enough to contract chickenpox as a 6-year-old young fella, unfortunately, which led to complications, and those complications led to a DVT, deep vein thrombosis in my lower right limb. And because of that, obviously the process is to blood clot. Essentially, they try to thin it. And that's the way they go. But unfortunately, for reasons unknown, when they try to thin the clot and get rid of it to fix it, it just progressively got worse. And in that process, they essentially lost me for about 27 and a half minutes and managed to get me back, and pretty much came to mum and dad and said, "Hey, look, you got a pretty tough decision to make here." And like, obviously I wasn't aware of this. I don't really remember anything beforehand either. I remember my brother having chickenpox, and then obviously that's probably the last childhood memory that I really kind of remember as such. And so, yeah, they gave mum and dad the decision. They're like, "Oh, we can keep trying to thin the clot. And that's the process we go down, and potentially risk his life again each time we do it. Or we can guarantee if we amputate through the knee, he will most likely go on to have a long, happy, fulfilling life just with one less leg."
So you essentially went to hospital and then woke up without one leg. How did that go when you woke up? As a 6-year-old, what does that look like for you in that moment?
So when I woke up in hospital, I was obviously at that age where I was kind of discovering the world and discovering how everything else works in the world. And I kind of got really, you kind of get interested in, what's going on with life. And as a youngster, you're fascinated by the fact that lizards lose their tail and they grow back. Lizards grow their tail back. So I was like, oh yeah. In my mind, it was like, lizards grow their tail back. To me, as a 6-year-old, I hadn't comprehended the fact that only applies to like lizards. But I was telling mum and dad every time I'd wake up in the water, I was like, it's fine. Like, it's going to grow back. Just give it a few days. Like, it's going to grow back. So it took them a while to sort of get that message through to me that it's like, no, this is going to be permanent. Like, your leg's not there anymore, buddy. You're going to have to sort of accept it. I think primary school, I encountered a few bullies here and there, but as I got older and I looked back on it, and like all the bullying, put in quotation marks, because when I looked back on it, it was like all the older grades kind of got into it, and they were like, oh, we'll call him a name, something to do with his leg. It's like, like Robot Land, Terminator Dude. And then I get older and I'm looking back at all this, and they'd sort of like try and exclude me just by like labeling what they see with my leg. And I'm now looking back and I was like, is that the best they've got with like the name calling? Like, I now walk around and I just feel like metal leg. Yes, that's what I've got. Thank you. Like, that's really original. Whereas like kids walk around now and they see me in the shopping center and they're like, oh, hey, mom, dad, there's Terminator leg coming. And I think that's the best thing ever. Like,
right, for sure.
It's like you wear it like pretty much like a uniform, and it's just like something that's like, you stand out from the crowd and encourage kids to kind of like pay attention to it so that they can learn about it and it becomes normal. And I'm actually thankful that they did call me all those names, because it just made me realize that is that like the best they had going on in their life, that they had to belittle someone because he had a different leg compared to everybody else. So it's sort of like, I was like, stopped me at the time, but then it's just those things sort of make you stronger, I guess.
Brown.
Pock. Grow Clinics.
Let's talk about them.
They are legends. They've sponsored this show since day dot, and you can defy genetics with Grow. We both have.
What I want to talk about too is they're always there on tap. If you've ever got questions, even after you've had the procedure,
absolutely,
they're always there to help and give you advice along the way, even after you've had it.
So if you don't know what Grow is, they help you regrow your hair. Their safe and clinically proven solutions are tailored to your unique needs, and they can do anything from helping you to strengthen your hair to completely regrow your hair.
They are the subject matter experts in hair transplantation in this country, in Australia.
One of the wildest things you could do is to go and sit down with them and let them do the Sharpie line on your head, because what they do is they get you in there and they go, this is where your hairline could be.
I mean, I reckon they use that as their their complete hook, because as soon as they draw that Sharpie hairline on your forehead and you go, oh my God, you're telling me that's where my hairline's going to be?
It was like years ago, we went to renovate our kitchen and they showed us a diagram of what our house would be like with the new kitchen. That's what the Sharpie line is like.
This Sharpie line. Look, it got me hooked in, and where they draw that Sharpie line is exactly where your hairline will go. And if you're interested to check it out, go to their website, growclinics.com.au, and you'll see it all from beginning to end.
growclinics.com.au. Defy genetics with Grow. Hey, while we've got your attention,
listen up.
We just want to ask a quick favour. If you could go to your podcast provider, wherever you're listening to this, and write a lovely review, give it a rating, do whatever you can, we would be most appreciative.
Or even at the very least, just hit that little subscribe button so then the episodes, when we release them, come up in your feed.
Exactly. That is all. Back to the show.
As you were.
Thank you.
The Brown Podcast.
One of the other interviews that we did, and it caught us off guard a little bit, was a guy by the name of Life.
Oh, my God, yes.
Okay, fascinating guy. If you go and follow him online, Life Speaks Life. And he does. He breaks it down. And his backstory is phenomenal. He was a Marine and everything like that. But with the state of the world at the moment, and with the upcoming American election again, and Donald Trump running for it, he had a really interesting viewpoint to share about Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, he believed that he served a purpose for what he was, or what he might still be. God help us all.
Yeah.
America's always been at war with itself.
Yeah.
So it's never been a different thing. We're a weird family, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're a very weird family that oftentimes people don't realize we're fighting to be acknowledged as family.
Yeah.
So the toughest thing is to fight for. All right, so take me. I'm Black. I'm African American in America, right? I'm very versed in the history of America and how we as a people were done here, why we were brought here, how we were brought here. We went from the Middle Passage, the chattel slavery, the Black codes, the Black laws, the civil rights movement, to the crack epidemic, to the prison industrial complex. Like I'm thoroughly ingrained in the way that runs, right?
Yeah.
So on one end of the stick, I go fight for the country. And where I'm from, certain people look at you like you fighting for a country, don't care nothing about you.
Yep.
On the other end of the stick, it was, you're not worthy to be here. So you fit in a very weird space. So there's a consistent, there's a very consistent off balance, on balance that you have to play. Like it's disheartening, but then you have to make a decision. I was one of those people who decided you're going to have to make a decision. The dichotomy of who you are is not going to change. The playing field's not going to be level. So you better learn to run on uneven ground. Some people lay down and say, it's going to give me an excuse not to run the ball. Me, just run the ball on uneven ground. It's not going to be fair. So what? It's going to be tough. So what? Everybody's not going to understand. So what? Life is going to be hard either way. So if it's going to be hard, let me fight for what it is that I want and let that be hard and hope for a better tomorrow for my grandkids, than rather sit in this hard space and just say it's never going to change. It's always been. It's always going to be.
The state of America at the moment, in your opinion, with you've got Donald Trump, who is desperately trying to get back into power, which, okay, so from the outside looking in, seemed like it was a fucking mess and it was just absolute bedlam for 4 years. What's your take on the current state and what needs to happen for America to be able to sort of get itself back to being the land of the free, the land of the great that everybody proclaims it is?
There's a lot of self-healing. The beauty of this is going to be crazy. The beauty of Donald Trump. I just said that. Definitely let me finish that part. Right? The beauty of Donald Trump was Donald Trump took all the masks off.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. I've served with racists, open racists. Never had a problem with those guys. And everybody's like, oh, so-and-so's racist. I was like, yeah, don't have a problem with him. Cool. Have a problem with closet racists.
Yeah, they're dangerous.
Have a problem with that's scary. Donald Trump was a necessary evil, that he took a lot of masks off a lot of people, and it made America really look at themselves and say, okay, let's deal with this cancer that we have in front of us. And a lot of truth that he exposed, even though it was wicked in that, it's like ripping the scab off, and now you see the pus and the scab. Like, you got to deal with this thing now. So the thing that America has to do to move forward is turn itself inward and fight that internal battle that we have to fight. We can't cover it. We can't smoosh it over. We just have to sit down in the funk, in the filth of the situation, get our hands in the grit and grime of it, and sort this thing out. Because right now we're a broken people, and my people's always been a broken people. So it's kind of like welcoming everybody to the fold. Like, oh, welcome to the picnic. Now let's figure this thing out. The other side of the fence is broken too. We've all bought in and drunk the juice of a culture that's made some of us elitists and we don't know it, and it made some of us feel like we're inferior and we don't know it. So we really need to have the dialogue so we can start fixing the situation.
So let's talk about one of the guys from my neck of the woods that we interviewed.
Yep.
Old Tommy Herschel.
Yeah.
He's from Tugun, and I grew up in Coolangatta.
Yeah. He opened me up to the English language more than anything during our chat.
It's so good. I mean, and for the American listeners, because we've got quite a few now, it was an education for them in true Ocker Australian language.
Yeah. And Maybe put your subtitles on for this one if you're from overseas.
It was beautiful. I mean, after this, we're going to go have a pig's ear. And for those of you that don't know, that is a beer.
What led you to the point that you're at the moment?
Oh, geez, mate, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you got 45 minutes normally for these things. But, mate, the long and the short of it is, you know, I was 10 years old when my parents split up. For a long time before that, I remember seeing, like, a lot of conflicts sort of going on at home. I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember seeing it, if that makes sense. And you know, when my oldie split, my old man, after a year or so of trying to live on the Goldie, where we're from, he took off to far north Queensland, and he's been up there ever since, mate. And I remember as a young fella, like, when Mum told us that that they were breaking up, I remember I tried to jump out of the car. I put my leg outside the car. I was only 10, and my big sister ripped me back into the car. And I remember in that moment thinking, like, I just want to know where my old man is. Where's Dad? What's going on? And I didn't think about jumping out of the car. I just had this reaction of wanting to get out of that situation. And I think a lot about that now, you know, when we lose people. Like, you know, there's a crazy stat that you hear that 66% of people that survive suicide regret it, attempting it in the first second, you know, that they did it. And I often say to young fellas, like, I don't know what happened in that moment, but I had a brain snap. And from then on, I guess I never really challenged what was going on in my world. I just sort of accepted it and went at it in the wrong direction, if that makes sense. I never wanted to process it. I never wanted to know actually what was going on. I just wanted to know where was the old man and what was happening. Mate, when he moved to far north Queensland, I just felt a lot of, like, I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for Mum. I didn't know any of their story. And so when I lived with Mum at Churgan on the Goldie, I was feeling sorry for the old man. So I went up and lived with him. And then when I started to live with him, I felt sorry for Mum. So I went back down to the Goldie, and I was only like 12, 13 years of age. Oh, yeah. And it was brutal, you know, like, that's the time where your biggest fear should be getting home before the streetlights come on so your old man doesn't kick your ass. Instead of, you know, my fear was getting on a plane and waving goodbye to my old man and knowing I wasn't going to see him for another 6 months, or same with my mum. So I sort of grew up for a long time with those were my fears, and you can't explain those to people, you know, especially mates your own age. And, you know, when their biggest stuff going on is kicking a footy down the footy ground and, you know, not getting out a lift down there, and you're there laying there on the ground, like, and which I used to do, and sit there and going like, shit, I'm not going to see my old man for 6 months, and they'd be there going, come on, we'll be right, let's go kick a footy. I just never knew how to process this stuff, and for me, being a smart ass and a loud bloke and all that sort of stuff at school became a great way to process it, because I could be angry, I could be loose, I could be a bit of a unit, put on this mask in front of the lads and be really safe, and then go home and I'd sit next to a fax machine, you know, like, and write letters to my old man or write letters to Mum. And the way my old man used to process it was I'd be at the fax machine crying, and he'd go, what's wrong with you? And I go, oh, I just miss Mum. And he'd go, oh, come on, harden up, get on with it, buddy, you'll be right, whatever. And so I never faced it, in a sense. I never got to deal with it. For me, like, later on in life, alcohol became a great way to deal with it as well. Because it let me do those things of getting angry, lets you get emotional, tell your mates you love them. And then the next day, you know, after you've had those uncomfortable moments the night before, I could ring my mate, and especially my mate Stewie, I used to do it to all the time, and go, oh, shit, man, did I get a bit emotional last night? He go, yeah, it doesn't matter, though, mate. We're on the piss. Or, you know, like, shit, what did we do last night? We get a bit loose. Yeah, it doesn't matter, though, you know, we're on the piss. And, you know, you got a bit angry, mate. And so for me, all that anger was coming out in really bad ways. I was what we say at Find Your Feet. I was going left, taking all the easy route instead of going right and sort of facing what was going on for me. Mum did her best and took me to as many counsellors as she could, but I just didn't know why I was there or what to say to these people, you know, that seemed like strangers. Mate, it got to a point in my life where, you know, I travelled the world for a long time as a surf journo. I'm a school teacher by trade, so I was pushing chalk during the day, you know, so I'd wear the mask really well wherever I was. But then, yeah, at night when I was on my own, I would just, I'd drink and I'd cry myself to sleep. But yeah, it got to one night where just it all capitulated and it built up. And I say to young fellas, you know, like my laundry pile built up, all my shit that I'd never washed and processed and taken care of just got way too big and I couldn't hide from it anymore. And I was sitting at home and had two blokes telling me I need to see a kinesiologist. And I was like, what the fuck? What's that, mate? Like, you know, I come from Chugan, mate. Closest thing we got to a massage therapist is the old dodgy bloke who volunteers on a Sunday at the footy club. Or, you know, the flashing open sign, you know, down the street.
Yeah.
That was
on the Gold Coast Highway.
Yeah. That was the closest for me. And they kept at it. And I had 25 years of shit built up, laundry pile. And, mate, I picked up a red wine bottle, sculled it top to bottom, threw it across the house and pretty much just trashed the house for the next 3 hours. And mate, I ended up underneath the house, banging my head against the wall, saying, I want to go home to Queensland and I want my mummy. Like, I was 35 years of age. And what I worked out was that night, what was underneath the house, what was banging his head against the wall was that 10-year-old boy that was in that car that was just wanting to know where his old man was and had been, instead of a functioning adult who, you know, realistically should have been able to deal with his shit and process his shit in a much healthier way than I had been.
Brown
Pock. And look, finally, the one I'd like to highlight was one that we'd actually been working on for quite some time because we're friends with her. Mel Greig. She was one half of the infamous Royal Prank Call.
This one really hit home for me because I have historically been a notorious pranker.
Yeah.
So I was really keen to get into this one because this was all about a prank that went horribly wrong.
Absolutely horribly wrong. And it changed her life from that moment on.
And now she's starting to take control.
You know, I wanted to become extinct. I just wanted to be a normal person here. And I ignored my story and I pushed it down. And that was not a good idea because what happened was a month ago I was diagnosed with PTSD, and that's what my problem was for 2.5 years, and I didn't realise that 10 years on you can get something like that. So I had a complete breakdown, and 10 years ago I didn't care if I died. I went into a suicidal state. So when people were telling me that I should die, I was believing them. But now, because I'm not depressed but I have PTSD, I'm so paranoid that someone is going to kill me, and now I don't want to die. So it's come full circle where that's where the PTSD is coming from, because I didn't deal with the amount of people that wanted me dead back then. I was getting thousands of messages for 2 years.
So let's go back to the beginning. You were involved in a prank call that went, I guess, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Can we unpack that for a sec? What happened and talk the listeners through that may not be across your story?
So it was just a normal day at work. Prank calls, as you guys know, they've happened in radio for years and years and years.
Since Jesus was a child. Seriously, Jesus' first radio broadcast, he tried to prank someone.
And the thing is, the point of the prank call was that you'd get permission from the person to play it. Yeah. So they're in on their own joke.
And that is the rule, just because Dion's not in radio, right? The rule of these kind of pranks is that you prank the person and then you ring them back and you get a permission. And that's in a show like what Mel was doing on the Hot 30 back then. You have producers, and how many producers did you have?
Oh, we had a lot. And because we actually had, because of Kyle and Jackie O, they breached a lot of the broadcasting laws before we took over the show. So we had extra measures in place. It also had to go through lawyers, producers, everything. So we recorded it, and then you go on and you record the next thing. But we made the prank call to the hospital, just like 40 other people before us did that day. We assumed there'd be a media centre. You've got the royal family staying there. How can they not? We didn't think for a second nurses would be answering the phone. No. The whole point was do the worst possible accent, see how quickly you can get hung up on. That's going to be our 30-second funny content piece.
And it was, like, when you hear it, it was a joke. Yeah. Like, there is no way that you are the Queen.
No, and I don't even...
I love you, but you're not the Queen.
I sounded like Mrs. Doubtfire. Like, it wasn't. And unfortunately, and this is why we have to be careful when we joke, Jacinta was having a very bad day that day. Yeah. So unless you know how someone is on the other end of the phone, I didn't say I was the Queen. I just said that I wanted to speak to my granddaughter, Kate, and we got put through.
Yeah.
And then the nurse gave us confidential information. It was approved on our end to air. It aired. The hospital came out and said no one's getting in trouble.
And the thing is that it was celebrated.
Yeah, and I'm ashamed to say that I celebrated it once Prince Charles made a joke.
Look,
but why wouldn't you? You would, though.
But this is the thing. There wasn't, and I was in radio at the time, there wasn't one person in the industry that wasn't like, oh, I wish I had have done that joke.
Yeah.
Because that was the highlight. That's what you aim for. You aim to create a headline. That's what radio is. Radio is, you want to end up in the media. That's what they want.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, you lose your job.
Yeah.
So, but we weren't trying to be controversial and get private information.
No.
We just wanted to be funny by doing stupid accents. But unfortunately, we were given private details and the hospital became an absolute joke to everybody.
Yeah.
Conan O'Brien, you think of the world's biggest celebrities and TV and radio hosts, they were all doing segments on us. The amount of how viral this thing went. And so by the time Prince Charles made a joke about it and the hospital came out saying there's going to be no repercussions for anyone involved, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll celebrate this now. There's going to be nothing wrong. And then we made that call on the Tuesday, and on the Friday, unfortunately, Jacinta took her own life and blamed myself and my co-host for her death.
And that was the nurse that took the call and pushed you through.
Not the one that gave the private information. It was the lady that transferred it, and she was having a very bad day, and it was awful that she felt that was her escape because it should never be the answer. But I blamed myself for years.
Following all that, the vitriol that was thrown your way was nothing short of incredible. Everybody that was in the industry pretty much went, of course they did the wrong thing. They absolutely did the wrong thing.
And they
that
distanced
was such
themselves from you.
Bullshit.
And we were on the front page of every newspaper around the world. People were branding me a nurse killer, a murderer.
Oh, my God.
And it was just... I'm not that kind of person. I am someone that will go out of my way to help someone. Mm-hmm. So to be called a murderer and a nurse killer, and what we copped from everybody, we had to go into hiding for 3 months. We had bodyguards. We had someone send actual bullets with our names on it to the police. And for me, the overwhelming grief and guilt I felt was instant. And it's been a 10-year journey of hell, if I'm honest. People are like, oh, it just happened for one day and that's it. I'm like, no, it didn't leave the headlines for 2 years. And then all this other stuff happened with the inquest and trying to get into, no one would employ me. I had 200 people say no. And even just 3 years ago, I had a corporate job, and there was a girl that worked there that started a hate campaign against me and said, I don't want to work with a murderer. She needs to be fired. Clients not wanting to be associated with me, the constant judgment and shame. And then only a month ago, a Reddit feed came up that said, today I learned. And there was 22,000 messages. And so I just copped hate all over again.
And if you want to listen to any of the people that we've profiled on Margaritas and Reflection, we are out of Margaritas, which means we are out of time.
And we're out of here.
New season will be launching very soon. We've got a whole new bunch of guests lined up, ready to go. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you could leave us a review. We would absolutely love that, because podcasts live and die by reviews and subscribers.
So, but only good reviews. If bad ones, stick them up your ass and just move on.
We'll see you.
I'm not joking.
We'll see you in season 3.
Scratch you later.
The Brown Podcast.
Why are you happy?
Because I don't want to be sad.